Hello students, welcome to TS1 Unit 3, which deals about historical evolution and development. In this class, we will be reading about the need of history of tourism. We will also understand the sources of data, that is the statistical data and the secondary sources, then periodization and concept. So it is going to be an interesting class today. If we estimate why we have to understand the history of tourism. History has developed over the years. So today we are here, it is because something has taken place in the olden days. Now we can learn and we can try to understand what happened earlier. Why we have to understand what we have to understand this, because earlier certain things took place. Because of that thing we are here, and in future certain things will take place. So we have to understand the concept of the history exactly. Understanding the history of the people rather than ruling class is very important, because often the history is interpreted in the other way, because the history of the ruling class will become the history of the place. That is not so. So we have to be clear with the concepts. Once when you are trying to understand the history of tourism, and the history of tourism is not the history of the culture or the place. It is about when people started traveling, then integrated economics, statistics, scientific understanding and other methodologies are the forms, and the sociology part is also there, and all these developed the history of tourism. So history of tourism is not the study about a single subject tourism. Here we have to study it under the combination of subject, because the history of tourism was built on various things like economics, statistics, then methodology, anthropology, sociology and other things also. The anthropology was limited to the statistical study of tourism in recent origin. Then historians, however, identify sources that can be used. The history of that particular period can be understood, and we can. Tourism was most developed in Europe. So the history of European tourism was assumed to be the history of tourism. They didn't concentrate in other parts of the world what is happening. So they considered the history of tourism of the European continent as the history of tourism of the entire world. Later, the historians started the economics, statistics, scientific methodologies, then anthropologies and sociology to develop the history of tourism. Later on, they added slowly these knowledge and they started looking tourism from different angles, and there comes the history of tourism started with the idea of other subjects also. As anthropology is linked to the statistical studies, then the methodologies also started coming up. So nowadays we are taking the statistical study, that means we are using the time period as the methodology to study how many tourists arrived at a place and so on. The methodology was later on built up, and now we are in the position of tourism statistical accounting is going on TSA. So what we have to understand is the real history of tourism. If you understand the real history of tourism, then we can plan a lot what sort of development is expected and how we can build our future and how we can take the tourism into the next spot, that is in the next level. What angle we have to take, everything will be feasible if we understand the history of tourism correctly. History of tourism will help us to illustrate the dynamic model of tourism development. At what period, what happened, why it happened, who was the reason behind it, how it happened, everything can be explained with the help of the history. So the role of history in society, any positive or negative impact owing to tourism can also be studied. Understanding the present nature of tourism phenomena is possible with the help of history of tourism. In developing a theoretical framework within which data on tourism can be verified. So history of tourism plays a vital role, and archaeological evidences of inns, hotels, villas and transports were available covering the period of thousands of years. So the tourism phenomena we can understand that it has not started in the recent time. It was 1000 years older, and even before that it all existed. The historical evidences what we are collecting, it speaks about the real time in which it existed. In few cases, the data recording earlier times were available, but the information was not continuous. We had the data for earlier times, then for other period we are not having it continuously. Then in the later stage we got the data. So once when we are compiling the data, we will understand the history of tourism. History of tourism took place in France, looked only the holiday pattern of the aristocracy. So they are only dealing about the royal people, how they traveled, what was the reason behind where they traveled, and so it has the limited scope. History of tourism in England looked at the important events, free time, cheap transport, spas, seaside resorts and local customs. So the British people, they were able to record it with a few more events, what happened in those days, why, how the people traveled, everything. So they became more authentic records were available. Then in the grand time, all over the world, tourism is looked as a system. So once when we are developing slowly, the concept of the history of tourism also developed along with it. Now economical, technical and cultural factors, environmental, socio-political are studied in depth to understand the link between the past and present. So we are not taking only the time period, we are dealing the other important topics, and we are trying to learn the history of tourism. Accordingly, the history of tourism was made as an important in these aspects. Identification of sources of data, use of both written and oral history also came into the practice. New perspectives are founded if critical examination is done. So we will be getting more and more ideas about how the earlier people traveled, what was the intention of travel. Understanding the history of tourism help in establishing the credibility of tourism as an academic discipline. So we can start doing the research, we can prove it academically also by the records with the help of the factors that what made people to travel, why they travel and what was the reason behind the travel. So once when we deal all these reasons, we can make it as an academic discipline. To establish tourism as an academic discipline, it is very important to understand the history of tourism. So few photographs were kept for us to understand how in earlier times the people were traveling, what was the mode of travel, what for they traveled, what were their dress codes, where they went, what notes they have left. Certain prehistoric time photographs were also been kept in these slides for you to make the things easier. The source of history or the source of data, we have to understand it exactly from where we are getting the data to construct the history of tourism. The sources for history of tourism are very diverse and related to time context and their validity. So it is not from the single source we are taking it from the many sources, and all these sources are authentic and they are valid because of the time frame. We are checking the time frame. Now with the help of the science we can establish at what time this took place. Even if we have a piece of material, then we can estimate the time period with the history and geography of that particular time period can be established with the help of the science. The main source from where we came to know about the ancient period or through the literary records. So the records what we are having today, it came from earlier time. Then inscriptions, whatever is inscribed on the stones, normally in southern part of India you will find the stone inscriptions in the temples which shows that this belongs to whom and at what time period this happened. Then graffiti, then papyrus receipts, that means the receipts which were being kept, certain rule regulations was followed, so they gave certain receipt for the trading activities, and those receipts also proved as a record for. Then the seals are used by the various rurals and their agents. So when the king used the seal, that shows at which time period this piece of documents belongs to. From that we can construct the history. Then painted pottery, that what happened, how these things came here. These are famous in one particular part of the world, how it reached the other part of the world. So once when we dig out this information, then we will come to know it was brought to this particular part of the world through these travelers. Then diplomatic records, there are many records which are existing between the rulers and their kingdoms. So such records also gives a lot of proof. Then from the archives that which are existing, then the oral history folk culture, both traditional and personal, can be used, because certain things are not recorded but it was transmitted from one generation to another generation with the help of the verbal listening and imparting the knowledge through verbal mode. So when the people remember, they pass it on to next generation. It is not in the written form, but the people used to listen it, understand it, remember it, and they pass on it to the next generation. So when the other generation pass it on to the third, fourth generation, such histories will be called as the oral history, and such oral history are also taken into the construct of the history of tourism in the present days. So we are coming to know about a lot many things we can come to know from through this oral history also. For your easier understanding, we have kept certain photographs in the slide which shows what is the form of receipt, what are the seals, how the stone cuttings has been made, and this remains as the part for the constructing the oral history or the written history. Maximum these records act as an evidences for us to establish in which period these things happened, and there are proof, and these proofs are valid proofs which are available in the archives. They are available in the various museums. From there we will come to know about the culture and tradition of the people, and we are also having the records from which distant place these people came and how they settled here, and who are those people who came here and visited us. All these records are possible to be get constructed from such archival records and other stone cuttings which are visible in the pages of the history. Once when we are speaking about the statistical records, statistical or numerical data are the primary source and are of recent origin. So if we will find a lot of statistical record in tourism, especially in the tourism industry, these things are constructed based on certain time period. So normally we used to take a year, that how many tourists have arrived, and how many tourists are domestic tourists, and how many tourists are foreign tourists, from where they are arriving, which age group people are arriving. Like that we used to construct various numerical data based on the tourism arrivals and receipts. So such data are the recent development. It was not from the olden times, but it is started as recently, when tourism was viewed as an important economic activity. To know about that particular business of tourism, people started collecting data. Especially government showed much of the interest in keeping or maintaining their record of tourism activities in their country. Slowly they gained the interest and they want to develop tourism as an industry. So the interest picked up and they started collecting the data. Depending upon this data collection, it was done with the help of the data from the secondary sources on health, safety, police, migration records, taxation, and census records were also used. So they tried to construct the data from various available sources. Whatever sources was available with them, they put it into the best use and they started collecting the data. In the year 1921, Britain started collecting data on tourism statistics, and by 1945 various countries started collecting data, because in all the countries the tourism activities have started taking place. So they were interested to make tourism as a successful industry. So to know more about the economic importance of tourism, we need data. So they started collecting the data. In India, tourism statistics were recorded after 1960 in a systematic manner. Before that, they were not able to identify the correct source. So the colonial rule, the partition made it difficult to collect the data on tourism. So right from 1960 onwards, we have the continuous pattern of data: how many tourists arrived, who came, at what time they came, from which country they arrived. So all these data are available. In earlier times, it was not possible because of various things. Later on, when we understood that tourism has to be developed, then we started collecting much of the data. Right from 1960, these records were available and it is continuously recorded in a systematic manner. The national tourism bodies and international tourism organization have achieved greater standardization of data. So exactly they were able to define the term what is tourist, who will be coming under the visitor, who will be called as excursionist, and how this tourism process has to be counted. So they arrived at the definition of tourism, and that was accepted by the international bodies. As a result of it, we started collecting the standardization of that particular data took place. So if I am called as a tourist, then the particular definition of tourism or the tourist is applicable, and that will be commonly accepted all over the world. So after this, the data recording, it became a systematic manner, and the standardization came in this particular data collection. So all over the world now that particular standardized data is being collected and recorded, which help us to understand more about the tourism activities which are taking place in all parts of the world. Then reliability of data is very much important. So from where I am collecting it, how I am collecting it, what is the validity behind it, that is the important thing what we have to understand. So data are of several types, and these data are also collected from the railway records, postal authorities, passports and visa authorities also helped us in giving the data regarding the tourist and tourism. Data collected from such sources help us to reconstruct the volume of people traveled. If I am able to calculate how many people took the passport, and after that taking of that passport, how many people visited the other countries. So once when these all the departments started giving the data, we were able to reconstruct the things, and we were able to find exactly how many people traveled outside a particular country, then how many people also arrived at that particular country in a particular time frame. So all this data we were able to reconstruct, and this reconstruction of the tourism data was done with the various help of various departments, and at various time period these data were kept in various organizations, and we were able to collect it, and we are able to give a clear picture. Time and season when they traveled also can be identified, in which particular time, in which particular season, where they are moving, how they are moving, what mode of transport they used, where all they went, everything can be recorded with the help of that. Then places they have visited also can be found with the help of such data. Particularly the holiday pattern of the salaried employees were also tracked with the help of data. So if I take leave in the office for visiting particular place, now that also can be collected as data, and we can see how many people working in a particular organization took leave especially for the purpose of tourism, where they traveled, whether they got any concession, where they are going. All these things can be reconstructed with the help of the data from various government organizations. Since tourism is a multidisciplinary activity, the sources of data varied a lot from one part to another part. So we have to be very careful how it was counted. That becomes very important. Secondary data sources. Secondary data sources are the data which are already recorded for certain purpose by the people working in various organizations. Nowadays we are collecting those secondary data, and we are trying to understand the history of tourism. Diaries, then the journals and the letters which were written by various travelers, in which they gave the accounting, then the academic notes what they have written was interpreted with the help of academicians, and these became the source of secondary source for the data of tourism. So when the mass communication, which includes the newspaper, then the journal article, then the guidebooks, then the maps which were used by the travelers were also used for constructing the necessary information, and those data are also used widely nowadays, and we can see through the photographs how we use the diaries, various records, various olden day passport, which country to which they belong to, everything can be identified with the help of certain secondary sources. Then while we are understanding the periodization and the concept, we have to be very careful once again, because with the passage of time and the class of people started traveling, those who are taking these services changed slowly. Earlier only the rich people used to travel. Slowly this pattern changed, and the middle class people or the people those who are working in various industry, they also started traveling at a particular point of time. The emergence of the leisure class and the variety of reasons for tourism has shaped the tourism industry over the period of years. So the reason for the people, the rich people to travel may vary from the reason for the middle class people to travel. So when we identified why these people are moving, what is the reasons for their movement, then slowly we came to know about the different form of tourism. So one particular class will be attracted towards one particular destination. The other class also are moving on leisure tourism, but their destination may vary. Such variations also recorded. With the help of the data which was recorded, we can identify the pattern of their movement, and the form in which they were moving were also known. However, based on the period of travel, we established 6 periods in this history of tourism. First one is the ancient era, the second one is the imperial era, third one is for the pilgrimage, then comes the grand tour era, then the transition era, and the present period that is coming under the modern era. Now, once when we want to move further, the concept commonly used during the travel. So, why the people traveled, what was the main reason for their travel, are classified with the help of four things. One is the motivation, second one is the holiday, third comes the mode of travel, and the fourth is tourism impact. So, these are the four main points what we have to understand why people travel in the earlier days also. So, once when we are understanding this, almost all we can reach or the history of tourism from where it has started we will come to know. First thing, we will deal with the motivation. Motivation, the wide reason why the people travel, it is because of the motivation, because they were interested in knowing what is happening in the other part of the world. The transformation of travel could be seen with the help of motivation, and it is due to that particular motivation the people started traveling. Something motivated them to travel from the place of their origin to some other place for enjoying their leisure. So, what is the real motivation behind that travel? First thing is the curiosity. It is the interest to know or to learn about the unknown things. So, we are moving to a place to learn what we are not knowing, to see what is happening in the other part of the world. Then comes the anticipation, to look for something and execute certain things, and to experience a new experience can be gained by visiting such place and to evaluate a thing. So, once when you are moving into the next step, that is, I am very much anticipated to see what is happening in the other part of the world. Then leaving a mark for posterity, that what the world ideas, how it came into existence, what method they are following, why you have experienced, what you have experienced. They will leave an account of all these things. So, that also made people to travel from one place to another. Then comes the community and the campus during all periods. So, once when we are seeing what is happening in a particular community, then comes the holiday pattern. The holiday was based on the religion and secular. In Europe, a day was set aside for the purpose other than the work day to conduct all these religious ceremony. So, they started celebrating certain festival, and that certain festival will be having a holiday. So, this type of sort of European community started this first, and later on it existed and it was followed all over the world. Spectator sports. Then secular tradition was a part of imperial system. When the state granted a public holiday for the imperial glory, public games and the sporting events took place, and the spectators sports were arranged, the spectacular sports were arranged every day. Then comes the mode of travel, the transport network, routes, vehicle used, documentation, wayside facilities and other convenience for the travelers increased slowly. So, when the people understood what is happening, why the people are moving from one place to another, they started offering certain services. So, those people, they were establishing their services by the side of the routes, by the side of the road network. As a result, they got the business, and from here also we can understand the history of tourism. Then tourism impacts. The lifestyle of the people changed. Changes in the production and consumption pattern was also visible. So, tourism has led certain impacts. So, once when we start studying the impact, that also will help us to reconstruct the history of tourism. So, this item was not of the origin, from where it came. It reached this particular part of the world with the help of the tourists. So, how the people in this part of the land, they started accepting the item or they started using the item. So, once when the concept develop or evolve around this, then we will come to know more about the history of tourism. Students, towards the end of this class, in this class we discussed about the history of tourism, the need for history of tourism, why we have to understand the history of tourism, because we have seen it in these slides also. History plays a vital role in understanding about the society, in understanding about a community in any part of the world. So, once when we want to understand the history of tourism, we have to look into the tourism in a multi-dimensional manner. we cannot construct the history of tourism only with the help of the statistical record. So we have to understand the culture of the place, the history, the origin, why people travel, many things in respect of sociology, anthropology, methodology, various things, and the economic importance and what economic benefit it brought, any changes it brought, any impact of tourism was visible. So everything has to be studied very minutely with the help of whatever sources of record we are having. Then only we can able to judge the history of tourism. So earlier days there were many concepts which were available. Certain people only read about the tourism pattern of the royal people, and that will alone not form the history of tourism. We will get an idea, but exactly where the common people visited, where they went, from where we are going to dig such resources, where it is recorded. So once when we started chasing all this data, we can do a lot of research in the academic area of tourism history. Then comes the sources of data, that also we try to understand. The sources is mainly of two parts. One is the statistical records and the secondary sources. The statistical records are built based on the time period, whereas the secondary sources of record were taken from the ancient period also. So certain recordings were done with the help of the people on various things. So once when we try to reconstruct the things, when we try to learn what are the seals used, where they have made the inscription, any piece of document which can be used as a source for understanding about that particular history of the place or about the travelers who have visited those places, it all will help us to reconstruct the history of tourism. The history of tourism should not be viewed as a single subject, as it composes of many things. Various things are affected by the tourism, and various things will help us to promote the tourism at a particular place. So in the nutshell, when you want to understand the history of tourism, we have to read about various subjects in depth. Then we have to analyze what happened. Then we should try to collect the evidences and record from what all the possible sources we are having. From that particular source, we can reconstruct the history of tourism. Then comes the periodization and the concept. So under various periods, people travel to various places for various reasons. So we have to understand this also, because the history has to speak for the volume of years. It should not be limited for a period of 100 years or 200 years. So in the ancient time also, how the people traveled, whether they have the practice of travel, from where they got the knowledge, what motivated them to travel from one place to another place, whether it is anticipation, whether it is curiosity, whether it is for spending the things, whether it is for learning the things, everything has to be recorded and everything has to be studied very minutely in in-depth manner. Then only we can appreciate the history of tourism, because from the history of tourism we can learn a lot about the society and the people, those who lived in those days. So that is going to play a vital role in making us to understand the history also very clearly. Once when we understand the history very clearly, we can construct a good thing for the future. So that is the reason why we have to concentrate on the need of the history. Hope you have understood. Thank you, student. Thank you very much.